Wide and streaming live at lesliemarshallshow.com. Call in with your thoughts at 888-6-LESLIE.
I forget the camera's on and you're all watching me eat my apple because I'm on a strict diet, drinking my tiny Coke Zero guilty pleasure, also allowed on the diet. Happy Friday. I'm Leslie Marshall. Welcome back to the only true democracy in talk. Thank you for listening to us on radio, on podcast, on stream, or watching us on Twitter's Periscope, LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, or any way you listen or watch. We appreciate the support, and I really love having you being a part of the Leslie Marshall family. Now, before we get to what is ripped from the headlines, I just wrote a piece about this for foxnews.com, and it's going to come out. And I hope you all read it. And for those of you who don't get to, shame on you, no, just joking. For those of you who don't get to read it, here's a little bit of what I put into that. Because Sunday is Mother's Day. And I am a mom. I have two 13-year-olds in the house right now. And not easy. Whew, teen years. Whew, the toddlers were tough. Terrible twos. Nope, this is getting tougher. They talk back, right? But all that aside, I want to commend my fellow moms out there today. Now, I know some of you are going to say, because this past year, I mean, it's hard being a mom. It's hard being a mom, whether you work inside or outside the home. This past year was very, very difficult on moms. Now, I know some of you are going to say, Leslie, what about the dads? What about the guardians? What about the caretakers? Yes, you all are fantastic, but Sunday is Mother's Day, right? And so this, I want to say just to the moms. Everybody can listen. A year ago, March, I had just flown back from New York and DC. I was flying there twice a month to be on the shows that I have to be on set for in Fox News Channel, like Outnumbered. In New York, I also did some stuff at the time with on Harris Faulkner's show, which is now called the Faulkner Focus. I had to be on set America's Newsroom. They used to have me on 2 panels out of New York, 2 panels out of LA, 2 on set, 2 remote. And then in DC, I would always do special reports, all-star panel in person as well. So I just flown back. The next day, my kids went to school, and I got an email that I had to pick my children up from school, and they had to have all their belongings with them, their backpacks, their school supplies, their computers, their lunch boxes, their water bottles, all that stuff. And I remember thinking, quite honestly, this will be 2 weeks, 3 at the most. I can deal with it. Everybody's doing it. My boss will be okay. Then I'm not jumping on a plane. This will blow over very quickly. And boy, was I wrong. I mean, we had found out there was a virus called COVID-19, right? And this is why all of a sudden our kids were going to have to go to school at home. Well, let me explain something. And Marky Mark can attest and be my witness that I technologically, I'm not good. I'm not inclined. I'm technologically phobic. So mommy helping the kids go to class online. And it's not just one thing. I mean, there's Zoom for the class, and there's Google Classroom for the assignments. And then there's Jupyter, and then there's Membean, and then there's Senior something and something else. I mean, there's all these places for these classes. And fortunately, my kids and I navigated this. And then in addition to that, you had internet issues. Here in Southern California, we had wildfires. Our power went out. In addition, there were just, internet issues galore because of these fires. I had to have my house rewired. We had to have routers put in so that my kids could use Wi-Fi. And when that went out, they could hardwire with the Ethernet into the wall. And the fact that I can even talk like that, say those things, and know what I'm talking about is a bloody miracle, because I really didn't before last year. Now, I'm not, taking out, don't take out your violin, be sorry for me. I'm simply saying, I know a lot of moms out there like me became IT techs and had to be overnight. And in addition to helping with homework or just reading a bedtime story, you're now teaching a class because you're online and being the online home school teacher. And in addition to that, we moms are used to cooking and cleaning. But now you're cooking all the time, breakfast, lunch, dinner, cleaning up, washing the dishes, emptying the dishwasher, refilling it numerous times a day because the kids are eating constantly. Because there's the temptation, right? When they're in their home school, the temptation not just to take a nap, as somebody told President Biden, the temptation not just to go on YouTube and Netflix and FaceTime, the temptation to raid the pantry and the fridge repeatedly, the temptation to let's go play with my dog rather than do my algebra, and constantly making messes. I had breakfast at 8, but hey, why not make waffles at 10:30 while mommy's on TV? And then I get out and it's like, what happened to my kitchen? I just cleaned it. And I know you moms out there and others, but moms can really empathize with me because you went through this too, right? You're cleaning times 10, you're cooking times 10. And then for those of you who had to work as well, this was a challenge. We didn't have our babysitters or our nannies or our relatives that helped us, or our daycare centers with our work, or our daycare centers outside of the work. And speaking of work, some of you lost your work, some of you had a reduced income, or your partner or your spouse or whoever's living with you did. And so now you're doing all of this on a shoestring budget, or barely a budget at all. On this Mother's Day, I just want to say, as one mom to another, we did it. We survived. We are warriors. I joke with my kids, what am I, made of money? And I said, that's what mom stands for, made of money. Well, no, we're not made of money. We're made of miracles. And this past year, Mom, you, me, and my fellow mother sisters out there, we showed the world the warriors that we truly are. We didn't need armor. We didn't need weapons. We did it with kisses and hugs, kisses on boo-boos, dinners, and stretching that dollar, being teachers and IT techs, being moms times 10 or to the 10th power, as only we moms know how to do. So I raise my glass, or in this case, my tiny can of Coke Zero. And I tell you all to take a bow. Thumbs up. You deserve it. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. And hopefully you never have to go through a year like that again. Happy Mother's Day. Well, let's get to what is ripped from the news here on this News and Political program. The U.S. economy added a mere 266,000 jobs last month. Forecasters had floated gains close to 1 million, and that makes this the biggest miss relative to expectations, and not just in a few years, but in decades. It's a major setback for the hopes of a speedy labor market recovery alongside America's great opening. As you know, Janet Yellen, she said our recovery is going to take a long time. Job gains in March were revised lower. This is a big miss that changes how we think about the recovery. That's economist Justin Wolfers. That's what he tweeted. But there is a bright spot because the labor force grew significantly, a counterpoint to the narrative that generous unemployment checks are keeping Americans out of the workforce. We've seen unemployment claims drop. The unemployment rate actually ticked higher to 6.1%. But when you look at the broadest measure of unemployment, that actually fell from 10.7% to 10.4%. It's coming down slowly, like the weight I'm losing on this diet. It's coming off slowly. Now, who liked this report? Markets reacted with elation, pricing in a Fed that continues to press hard on the accelerator for the foreseeable future. So what do we need to watch now? Expect President Biden and his economic team to double down on their argument for that $4 trillion plus infrastructure and social spending package. By the way, hunger has plummeted due to those stimulus packages. And we can cut poverty in half. And that's one of the reasons I'm a Democrat, one of many. Anyway, they're going to double down on that argument for a $4 trillion plus infrastructure and social spending package, which they say can create jobs in everything, construction, clean energy, the list goes on. Republicans are going to likely argue the proposed tax hikes will kill what's shaping up to be an uneven recovery. But this administration's focus will be getting on the spending plans passed, and they're going to do it one way or another. Bottom line here is, while it's possible that April's jobs report might yet be revised upwards, this number proves that economics is not a science and that America's pandemic recovery, well, it's going to be rocky. I'm Leslie Marshall. That's what's ripped from the headlines part one. We'll come back with part two in just a minute, but hang tight. In the meantime, if you don't follow me on Instagram, at Leslie Marshall Talker, on Twitter, at Leslie Marshall, on Facebook, facebook.com/The Leslie Marshall Show. And I am she. We'll take a break. We'll come back more from Rip from the Headlines. And later, from Johns Hopkins Infectious Disease Unit, Dr. Bob Bollinger is in the house. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away.
If you miss Leslie on TV this week, catch up at lesliemarshallshow.com.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or three.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hey sis, missed you this morning. Kim told me you weren't feeling well, so I'm just doing a self-care check.
Oh, thank you, friend.
How you doing?
Girl, listen, my energy was so low because I didn't eat breakfast when I got up, so I had to miss virtual yoga with y'all.
Trust me, I understand.
But I'm doing much better now that I've eaten, so I'm back on track.
Great. In that case, let's get some steps in tonight. I'll come over and we can walk around the lake.
Sounds good. Appreciate you being in my business, too. Now, let me get in yours. Did you check your blood pressure today?
I did that and my squats, okay?
Okay.
High blood pressure is not going to be my friend if I can help it. See you at 6?
Let's get it. See you then.
Now more than ever, it's important that we protect our hearts and the hearts of those we love. Check in on one another and be a part of a healthy blood pressure movement. Rally your squad to take the online pledge at releasethepressure.org. Brought to you by the Release the Pressure Coalition and the Ad Council.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day animators struck Fleischer Studios in New York City. It was the industry's first strike. Creators of Popeye the Sailor Man and Betty Boop were fed up with working conditions at Fleischer. They were sick of the long hours, low pay, no paid sick leave, or even vacation time. Some had worked years without a day off. As well, they resented having to ask permission to use the bathroom. Animation workers wanted better working conditions and medical insurance. 2 animators had recently died of tuberculosis, and workers linked their deaths to poor ventilation in the studio. They had been trying to organize with the Commercial Artists and Designers Union for over a year. 2 leading animators were fired for union activity a month earlier, and another 13 were fired when the union approached the studio demanding their reinstatement, union recognition, wage increases, and benefits. In his book, Drawing the Line, Tom Cito writes that picketers were soon marching on Broadway singing, "We're Popeye the Union Man. We'll fight to the finish because we can't live on spinach." One picket sign read, "I make millions laugh, but the real joke is my salary." Strikers received support from the Screen Actors Guild. The Musicians Union refused to provide soundtracks for the studio, and many union projectionists refused to show Fleischer cartoons across the country. The AFL organized a boycott of Paramount Pictures, which financed the studio, and area longshoremen frequently joined the picket lines. After 5 months, the studio finally caved, granting the strikers' demands. But the victory was short-lived. Fleischer made moves to relocate to Florida within a year, in part to bust their union. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Follow Leslie on Twitter. Just go to www.twitter.com/Leslie Marshall, and we'll be sure to share your tweets.
We are back. Leslie Marshall, welcome back. Only true democracy and talk. Let's continue what is ripped from those headlines. Coronavirus infections in the United States are now at their lowest levels in 7 months, and that is thanks to the vaccines. Here in California, we have the lowest COVID rate in the United States. We have had over 72 hours of 0 cases, and we have the lowest hospitalization rate in the United States. Just pointing that out because we're a blue state with a Democratic governor. We had lockdowns, and we had kids homeschooled, and we got a lot of crap for it, but we're number one, so recall that, my love. Coronavirus infections, like I said, now the lowest levels in 7 months, and that is thanks to the vaccines, and also thanks to people willing to wear masks, social distance, and get those vaccines. The rest of you, not so much. The vaccines are turning the tide in America's battle with the coronavirus. Deaths and serious illnesses have dropped significantly. And like I said, here in California, where I am, and now cases, well, they are falling too. And that is an important piece of protection for the future if we can keep it up. Now, by the numbers, the U.S. averaged about 48,000 new cases per day over the past week. That's a 13% improvement over the week before. And it is the first time since October that average daily cases have dipped below 50,000. 20 states saw fewer new cases over the past week than they did the week before. Outbreaks did get bigger in 10 states. New Jersey saw the biggest improvement over the last week, a 40% drop in cases, followed by 30% in Connecticut. And I just want to add again, California, lowest hospitalization rate, had 3 days with 0 cases. So why is it happening? Over half of all American adults now have gotten at least one shot of the vaccine. I have them get the second one Monday. I don't want to be sick on Mother's Day. And 41% of adults are fully vaccinated. Now, it took a while for the U.S. vaccination drive to translate into a sustained decline in the number of new cases. The virus is still surging worldwide. We've heard about India. Keep your prayers for them. It's very, 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 they're just struggling. They're reaching incredible numbers opposite what we are. They're just raising and hitting numbers, breaking through a ceiling of numbers, so sadly. And because the virus has already been able to spread so widely, it will likely stay in our life for years to come. That means we'll probably be getting 1 or 2 vaccines a year with COVID. We will be wearing masks into 2022 at some capacity, whether on planes. And there are new variants. And by the way, that virus wants to survive. It will continue to mutate. It will continue to evolve. That means we will have to continue to fight it. Studies show that Pfizer is very effective against the current variants of the virus, but again, it will mutate further. There'll be new variants to come. And future variants, they say, may be deadlier. Because remember, hey, look, when I was a kid, right, and I don't want to age myself here, but if a kid got lice, they used this like shampoo, I think it was called Rid, and you put it in your hair. I never had this, but I know this as a mom, right? And just growing up, and I knew kids had it. They put it in their hair, you washed it out, you rinsed it out, you're done. So my kids, when they were in kindergarten, there was an outbreak of head lice, right? And I'm like, oh, great. So I go to the store. I said to the pharmacist, hey, where do I find Rid? My kids have head lice. And she goes, they grew immune to that. They grew an immunity. Who's they? The lice. The bugs are getting stronger. Yeah. The lice grew an immunity to it. We had to take them to this place. You all know these places like Hair Angels, and they sit there and seriously, strand by strand, they pull them out with a a comb. Hey, Stephen King, I'm reading too many of your tweets, your novels, and watching your movies. And they take them out with a comb. Hello. And so things change. So the reason that the future variants could be deadlier is because viruses, bugs, they grow immune to the things that we use to try to kill them. We saw that with malaria. What we were using for malaria in years had to be changed because the mosquitoes grew resistant to it. So future variants may be deadlier, more able to evade our existing vaccines. But for now, the vaccines do appear to be highly effective against nearly every common variant. There's about 5 variants right now out there. Vaccines are working. That's the bottom line. They're saving lives and beating back the virus right now, and they can minimize the virus's presence in our lives in the future. But that's only if enough people get them. Let's rip another. I mentioned this earlier, but the percentage of Americans struggling with hunger is now at its lowest level since this pandemic began. And what that suggests is the recent flood in aid from our nation's capital and this administration is making a significant difference to families struggling economically. The U.S. Census Bureau released data this week, and it shows the percentage of adults living in households that sometimes or often did not have enough to eat. And can I just say a sidebar? I know we've been through a rough year. But before that, and now, there is not any reason in a nation as wealthy as ours, our poorest person is richer than middle class in a third world nation easily. But there is no reason, none, zero, that anyone in this country, especially a child, should go to bed hungry. There's no reason. We throw out so much food. How many of you have a subscription to Netflix or pay money for Starbucks? I mean, seriously, okay? I'm sorry to like guilt y'all, shame y'all, but this is the thing. You need, and we need, to care about our fellow human. Care about our fellow American. There are many programs out there, and I strongly suggest whether you give canned goods or write a check, please, there's no reason in the United States of America that anyone should go to bed hungry. And we do have children that go to bed hungry, and that's shameful. And please don't tell me you're pro-life or you're a Christian if you don't do something about this. Anyway, data released by the U.S. Census Bureau this week shows the percentage of adults living in households that sometimes or often did not have enough to eat. Now, that dipped to just over 8% late last month. It was 11% in March. It is a substantial drop, and it came after hundreds of billions in stimulus checks went out. But you know what? We can get rid of that 8%. We can, folks. Money helps. That's what Diane Whitmore-Schnazenbach, an economist and director of the Institute for Policy Research at Northwestern University in Chicago, said. She said they've been tracking hunger rates closely throughout the pandemic, and she says, quote, "We're continuing to see signs of progress. That's exciting. That's good news." Now, the rate of American adults in households struggling with food is now down more than 40% since its peak in December. That's a fact that Democrats are beginning to tout as proof that hundreds of billions of dollars in direct stimulus is working as intended, as they push for more, another massive package, despite growing GOP opposition to more spending. You push money in, and it has its benefits. That's one of them. Let's rip another. Representative Congresswoman Nicole Maliotakis, a Republican in New York, said it pained her to vote against the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. But in the weeks that followed, the first-term Republican issued a news release celebrating the more than $3.7 million from the package that went to community health centers in her district as one of her achievements. She said she prided herself on bringing federal funding to the district and back into the pockets of taxpayers. She's not alone. Every Republican in Congress voted against the sweeping pandemic relief bill that the president signed into law 3 months ago. And since then, Republicans from New York to Indiana to Texas, Washington State, well, they're promoting elements of the legislation that they voted against, they fought to defeat. Republicans' favorite provisions represent a tiny sliver of the massive law that sent $1,400 in checks to millions of Americans. And GOP lawmakers, well, they're taking credit for it. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Republican from California, topping a group of at least 8 Republicans who have encouraged constituents to apply in recent days for programs that they voted against. Hypocritical, to say the least. I'm Leslie Marshall. That's what's ripped from the head. Take a break. When we come back, we'll have our guest and more with you right after this. Don't go away.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and...
These days, the haughty rich in our country have developed such an arrogant sense of self-entitlement that they've gone from being merely irritating to infuriating. Unsurprisingly, their plutocratic greed and rigging of the system has generated a political backlash, including a widely popular push to tax the massive stashes of wealth the upper class has amassed by stiffing the middle class and poor. Alarmed by this uprising, the rich have launched a major effort to diffuse public anger, not by altering their own behavior, but by a semantical twist. Interestingly, since the rich has become such a negative phrase, it is being dropped from the vocabularies of right-wing media, lawmakers, and other defenders of wealth concentration. Rather, they now glorify the millionaire-billionaire class as, quote, high earners and high-net-worth individuals. Both are awkward phrases, yet both serve to exalt the fortunate few as superior earners and worthy individuals. Words matter because they're powerful social constructs that shape our culture's moral values. For example, even failed CEOs who preside over big losses still collect boodles of cash from the corporate hierarchy, while working stiffs who perform their jobs admirably at the same corporation get pay cuts or even get booted. Boeing, for instance, suffered $12 billion in losses last year, costing 30,000 workers their jobs, yet the top exec was rewarded with $21 million in pay. The establishment media cloaked the greed of the chief by saying he had earned his millions and is now worth such and such money. This is Jim Hightower saying these aren't euphemisms, they're lies. To get the truth, the media might ask ousted workers how much they think the CEO actually earned and is worth.
If you missed Leslie on TV this week, catch up at lesliemarshallshow.com.
We are back. Leslie Marshall, welcome back. And we welcome back Dr. Bob Bollinger. Dr. Bollinger is the Raj and Kamla Gupta Professor of Infectious Diseases at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. He holds joint appointments in international health at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and in community public health at the Johns Hopkins School of Nursing. He is founding director of the Center for Clinical Global Health Education, the CCGHE, and the center is doing a lot of COVID-19 related work here in the United States and also beyond. Their website, main.ccghe.net, on Facebook, facebook.com/CCGHE. Doctor, welcome back. Good to have you with us. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us. I know you're very busy, so I thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Leslie. Nice to see you again.
Well, we've seen a lot of we're seeing some great things. We see words like plummet. I live in California. We have the lowest hospitalization rate now in the United States. Our numbers are down. We're entering different tiers of colors like yellow, and we've had 3 days in a row with 0 COVID cases. Everybody loves seeing that. Everybody loves hearing that the president's goals are not just met, but that he surpassed them. But his latest goal, which he has said that 70% of adults receiving 1 shot by Independence Day, July 4th, a lot of people think that this goal is going to be much harder to reach than his previous ones. Would you agree? And if so, why?
No, I'd agree. I'd also agree that we make great progress, particularly with vaccination for the last couple of months. I mean, it's really been remarkable. But, the last mile is always the hardest. And, to get those who are hesitant or resistant to vaccination to agree to get vaccinated is going to take a lot of effort. And I think that's, it'd be great if we could get there. Tremendous for the country, tremendous for business, tremendous for schools, society. If we can get there, we just need the cooperation and the help of more people to get the vaccine.
What are you hearing, doctor, from a medical perspective? What are people hesitant about with regard to the vaccines? What is the hesitancy?
Well, it varies. I mean, there's lots of, uncertainty in the minds of some folks about, the rapidity at which we were able to develop these vaccines. So we have to reassure people that they were done rigorously and that these vaccines are safe and highly effective. We leveraged investments in science that we didn't have before to really accelerate the science, which is one thing that helped us. And that's one of the reasons why we were able to get these vaccines out more quickly. But they're very safe and very effective. So some people are just, I think, reluctant because they're scared. We just have to reassure them and answer their questions. Others, I think, are just resistant just to be resistant. They, for whatever reason, that some are hesitant and some are resistant, I think. And that we need to work on those that are hesitant to convince them that the vaccines are safe and effective. Also convince people that it's not only beneficial for yourself, it's beneficial for others. It's beneficial for society, for getting schools open, to getting businesses open. So we have to work on whatever hesitancy and whatever barriers there are. And there are many.
Yeah, my kids are both 13, and they're going to be getting the vaccine in a couple of weeks. Easily enough, it's going to be done at school, so I don't have to fight for an appointment. I've been vaccinated once, and I say that because I'm going for my second vaccine on Monday. But I understand that the second dose, some people feel like they're completely inoculated once they've had, the first vaccine. Can you speak to and impress upon people who are listening and watching today how important it is to get that second shot and that second dose, and maybe break it down for us as to what shot 1 does and shot 2 does?
Yeah, well, it depends. Obviously, you're talking about the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines, which are 2-shot vaccines. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a single shot. For any of the vaccines, you want to get the complete regimen. If it's 1 shot, you get 1 shot. If it's 2 shots, you get 2 shots, because that's how they're designed to work. No vaccination is 100% effective, but my goodness, these are really, really, really highly effective, over 90% effective, particularly in preventing severe disease and death. But after you get these, in the case of Moderna and Pfizer, after you get the second shot, about 2 weeks afterwards. So you kind of get your first shot, get your immune system revved up a bit. It gets primed, we call it, and then you get a booster of the second shot. And that's when we really see those antibodies go up after the second shot. And that's associated with protection. The people that, there are some people, and very, very few, but there are few that are getting infected after the first shot. Fortunately, most of them are having mild disease, but they can still spread to others because they're not giving the body enough time to mount the immune response. It's going to protect them efficiently and sufficiently. So I think the key is get the second shot, keep wearing a mask and being distancing until 2 weeks after that second shot, and then you're in much better shape.
You had talked about after the second shot, that you had just said is really when those antibodies rev up. Is that why it seems that when, like for me, I had 0 side effects after the first shot. And to be honest, I think I had sniffles for 5 seconds, but that was it. And some people, whatever, but I've heard a lot of people say, whoa, that second dose, whether it's Pfizer or Moderna, really kicked me on my butt. Is that because that's from where you stand seem to be the case? If somebody gets sick, it's usually the second shot because it's really increasing, or those antibodies are really revving up those antibodies.
I'm not sure if we know that completely, Leslie, but certainly there are more side effects the younger you are. We know that. I had some side effects from my second shot, but I took a little Tylenol, had a sore arm, a little bit of headache, and a fever. My wife had the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, had 0 side effects, and was disappointed. She wanted to she was hoping she'd have more of a reaction to kind of convince herself that she was having a strong immune response.
Well, actually, that leads into my next question, Doctor. If somebody has no side effects, does it mean it's not working? Because people say, well, I got sick, but that means it's working. I mean, is that true? It's working if you get sick. It's not if you don't?
No, I had that conversation with my wife to reassure her. No, the side effects or the lack thereof doesn't mean the vaccine's not working, because not everybody has side effects. Most people have very, very mild symptoms or a little sore arm. So no, there's no correlation that we know of between the significance of the side effects and your immune response. It works. This is a really, really good set of vaccines.
My job is political and in the media, right? Your job is medical. But sometimes medical and political, collide. And in a sense, this has, because when you look at the numbers, more blue states have been vaccinated than red states, Democratic states versus Republican. And there are disparities in vaccination rates, largely along political lines. As a medical professional, what do you need from the political community to help change that, so that more people in red states or more Republicans will become vaccinated, even when largely their political leaders have or are being vaccinated?
I mean, healthcare decisions, public health decisions, should not be politicized at all. We have to stop politicizing things like masks and distancing and vaccination. I mean, it's for the health of all of us, regardless of your political position. And we just have to get away from this idea that public health and things like vaccines and wearing masks and caring for each other by doing, practicing those things is somehow political. It doesn't make any sense. I think what we're going to see is that as we move forward in this pandemic, the places and the people that don't get vaccinated, the communities and people that don't get vaccinated, are going to be the ones that continue to be hospitalized, continue to be affected, and continue to die. The people that get vaccinated, we know, are much, much less likely to end up sick in the hospital or die from COVID. So unfortunately, we're going to see that in places where the vaccination rates are lower, there's still going to be transmission. We're going to have, I think, hot spots, maybe even small surges in communities and populations that don't have high vaccination rates. And it's really unfortunate, regardless of people's political position. Those are the communities that are going to be, and the people that are going to continue to suffer from this.
A lot of people out there are getting on planes or getting in cars and seeing loved ones that they haven't seen in over a year, parents, grandparents, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, friends, and hugging, right? Hugging's a big thing. For people out there that are not being vaccinated, whether by choice or because they can't, maybe it's not recommended because of a medication that they're on or a health condition. If a person is vaccinated and they are with that individual, should they remain masked? Because I think some people think if you have the vaccine, you can't get COVID, which is not true. And you could also have, absolutely no symptoms and be carrying that and give that to the individual, correct? So could you tell us what is the right way to go about it now that we're going to take a break, and then I'll get you answer on the other side of this. Just be thinking about this. What is the right way to go about interacting with friends or family members that have not been vaccinated when we've been vaccinated? Do we need to mask? What is the right way to go about that? Because a lot of people are planning a lot of trips to see a lot of loved ones that they haven't been able to see for over a year. I'm Leslie Marshall. One of them going to go see my mom this summer. We'll be back with our guest, Dr. Bob Bollinger.
Follow Leslie on Twitter. Just go to www.twitter.com/Leslie Marshall. And we'll be sure to share your tweets.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. We show up differently, worship differently, and have found new ways to express our love and support to family and friends. But now there are vaccines, and they are the first step that lets us get back into the things we miss most. Like spreading the word without spreading concern, girls tripping instead of solo sipping, brunching instead of late night munching, and talking smack with a side of mac and cheese. It's okay to have questions about COVID-19 vaccines.
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Is it safe?
Can I trust it?
What about pre-existing conditions?
Now get the facts. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when COVID-19 vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome to Code Whack, your podcast on America's broken healthcare system and how Medicare for All could help. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. What challenges do doctors and their patients face when it comes to giving and receiving quality healthcare in America? To find out, we spoke to Dr. Nancy Naparko, a pediatric neurologist who works for Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Welcome to Code Whack, Dr. Naparko. So what is it like as a physician dealing with different health insurance companies?
Just like they will refuse payment to a doctor for seeing a patient, they refuse to the doctor the ability to order the best medicine or treatment without a lot more work and validating it, and still you can't get it. In fact, I do a clinic on Saturday. I see about 15 patients, and I will say almost every single one of them, I spent a good part of the medical visit talking about what was rejected and trying to think up other things that might help their child. I can pick out the best treatment and even be conservative about it. Not the strongest medicine, but something that should work, or different tests, and they get rejected. Insurance just won't cover it. I totally resent medical insurance companies. I'm in the position that I think medical insurance companies have no right to exist.
Thank you, Dr. Nancy Naparko. Find more Code Whack episodes on ProgressiveVoices.com and on the PV app. You can also subscribe to Code Whack wherever you find your podcasts. This podcast is powered by Heal California, uplifting the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform around the country. I'm Brenda Gazar.
We're back with Dr. Bob Bollinger. He is the Raj and Kamla Gupta Professor of Infectious Diseases at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, and he holds joint appointments in international health at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and Community Public Health at the JH School of Nursing. Founding director of the Center for Clinical Global Health Education, the CCGHE, and that center does a lot of COVID-related work here in the U.S. and beyond our borders. Check them out, facebook.com/CCGHE. Follow them there and go to their website for more information, main.ccghe.net. Dr. Bollinger, thank you for holding welcome back. I asked you before the break about the best way for people vaccinated interacting with friends or families who have not been vaccinated to protect that loved one.
Right. So people that are fully vaccinated, if they're around each other, and I mean fully vaccinated, both shots, wait their 2 weeks, they can take their masks off when they're around each other, particularly if they're in small groups. But when unvaccinated and vaccinated people mix, particularly inside, they both need to wear masks, and particularly while community spread is going on. We may reach a point in time, and I hope we do, where enough people get vaccinated that the community rates go way down, and to a point where everybody can be a little more relaxed. But until that happens, when you're around vaccinated and unvaccinated people, need to wear masks around each other so you don't spread the infection to others.
A lot of people say, people such as yourself, doctor, that COVID's going to be with us, for a long time. When medical professionals say that, what do you mean? I mean, do you mean that? I mean, obviously, I know what it means. COVID will be with us for a long time, but does that mean that we are likely to be receiving 1 or 2 shots with COVID a year, like people get the flu shot? And will we be wearing masks, into 2022 and perhaps beyond?
Well, I think those are 2 separate questions. Let's talk about the vaccinations. I think it's certainly possible that we're going to need to have boosters, whether it's going to be every year or whether it's going to be the same or kind of an updated vaccine like we do with flu. We'll have to wait and see. But we'll deal with that. We're going to figure that out. And I'm not real concerned about that from a scientific point of view. I'm more concerned not about the booster shots. I'm more concerned about the people who are refusing or hesitant to get their first vaccine. That's the biggest barrier to the second question, which is when do we get to take masks off? When we get, are we going to have to wear masks again? Depends on essentially how immune the community is when either new strains get introduced in the future, if that happens, and how well protected we are, and particularly how many people are vaccinated. So it could be that we end up in situations for a while where we have seasons where new variants come into and get circulated around the world. And the biggest risk is not going to be the people vaccinated. The biggest risk is those who don't wear masks in those situations and are unvaccinated, because those are the ones who are going to get sick, and those are where we'll see the outbreaks. So we might have communities or situations where we have to wear masks periodically. We'll have to wait and see. We'll track it. But boy, we could really mitigate that risk right now if we get everybody vaccinated.
Now that the FDA has said it is okay for 12 and up to get the vaccines, I know that we got an email yesterday and there were different moms talking, and there were some moms that were hesitant because they were concerned about side effects. In your professional opinion, is it safe for 12-year-olds? And if that's the case, why the hesitancy in getting adults vaccinated before the kids?
Well, I mean, we have to wait and see. I think the companies are now submitting their safety data on children to the FDA. So I haven't seen the safety data yet. I presume if it looks good as it does in other people and older adults, then I think it's great, perfectly safe in kids. I think the risk of getting the vaccine, we have to put it in perspective. The risk to a child of getting COVID is much, much greater than the risk of any vaccine, I would think. And we'll have to see the data, but that's what I expect to see.
Is this what you had said earlier about, vaccine hesitancy? Is this why Dr. Fauci says we won't reach herd immunity anytime soon?
That's certainly, that's certainly true. And I think I agree with him. That's the biggest risk, is that we're going to get delayed or have to have these recurrent challenges with masking or chasing this down with new boosters all the time or new vaccines, because people right now are so hesitant to get vaccinated. Too many people are hesitant to get vaccinated. We could really quickly turn this around. I want to be optimistic. I think if we can really push forward over the next month or two, we could be in an incredibly much better place. I want to see these kids be able to go back to school full time, no masks, whatever's necessary, whatever we need to do as a society to get the schools open, businesses open again, and get back to normal. We should do it, and that's going to require all of us, including folks who are hesitant to get their vaccine.
forgive my ignorance on this, but we have variants out there right now. We hear Pfizer and others saying that the vaccine looks like it'll be it'll be able to handle the current variants. But there is a concern that this virus will continue to mutate as viruses do, and that there'll be variants that are more deadly. Can you maybe talk to us about that and what happens if these current vaccines that we're getting now aren't successful in fighting that? Because I was saying this before you came on the air when I was doing my rip from the headlines. When I was a kid, if you got head lice, you used that Rid shampoo, you shampooed it and it was gone. I never had it, but kids in my school did. That's why I know about it. As a mother, when my kids were in kindergarten and there was a head lice outbreak in the school, I went up to the pharmacist at, Walgreens or CVS or Rite Aid, and I said, hi, where do you keep Rid? And she said that the lice had built up an immunity against it, and you had to have them by hand, go to a place like Hair Angels or whatever. We saw that with malaria too, right? That the mosquitoes grew a resistance to the vaccine, and the World Health Organization had to provide a different vaccine and create a different vaccine. How likely is that? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but in your medical expertise with COVID-19 going forward, when we look at how many times this is already, mutated, how many variants we already have.
Well, germs mutate. Viruses in particular mutate a lot. And coronaviruses mutate a lot as well, just like flu and some of the other viruses we talked about. So we expect them to mutate. That's part of what happens when these viruses make copies of themselves. They're sloppy and they make mistakes, and they're going to get mutations. And so we expect that. In the case of viruses, it's going to be a lot easier for us to develop a new vaccine for COVID than it is to find a new treatment for resistant head lice. I guarantee you. And we have the platforms, the technology, and understanding now to quickly adapt these vaccines for new versions of or new mutants or new variants of the coronavirus. That is something I have a lot of confidence we'll be able to do. I have much more. Our biggest risk is not finding the vaccines that work and developing. Our biggest risk is that enough people won't get the vaccines that we have. And that's why we're going to continue to need new ones, because the virus only mutates when it spreads. And if we could stop the spread, we could stop the mutations. So,
and it's like a dog chasing its tail, right? It's like we can't reach herd immunity because people won't get the vaccines. People won't get the vaccines. It keeps spreading, so we can't reach herd immunity. So people understand, if anybody, even if we get one person out there who's hesitant to go get a vaccine this next week or tomorrow or whatever, I think that's awesome. And, we've done our jobs for the day, so to speak. But, with herd immunity, does the virus die out, or is it less able to mutate as many times or as quickly?
This particular virus, once it doesn't have a person to infect, a host that's susceptible, it won't transmit. It'll stop. But I think back to something you asked earlier. The world is a big place. We're never going to get the entire world immune to coronavirus. There are new people born every day. There are people that, for all sorts of reasons, aren't going to react as strongly to the vaccines as others, right? So there's always going to be people susceptible to coronavirus, just like there are for flu. But what makes this much more difficult is that because some people, a significant number of them who get infected with this virus, get really, really sick and die. If this was just causing a head cold, we wouldn't be so concerned about it. But we have we have a significant number, millions of people in the world, over 580,000 Americans have died from this in the last year and a few months. So, that's the biggest issue. And I think we can address that. Even if we don't stop the transmission throughout the whole world, we can have a huge, huge impact on the risk of death and hospitalization. And that's what's going to allow us to open up again. That's what's going to allow us to get back to normal. Even if we don't fully eradicate this from the world, I think we have a great opportunity to get back to a much more normal way of life.
Normal.
Everybody
right?
gets a shot.
Doctor, thank you for being with us once again. This is Dr. Bob Bollinger, Raj and Kamla Gupta Professor of Infectious Diseases at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, holding joint appointments in international health at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and in community public health at the JH School of Nursing. I also mentioned he's founding director of the Center for Clinical Global Health Education, the CCGHE. The center doing a lot of work on COVID. Check out their website. You could learn some things and maybe have some questions answered. If you haven't had them answered today, I hope you have. Go to main.ccghe.net, and on Facebook, go to facebook.com/CCGHE. I'm Leslie Marshall. Have a wonderful weekend. Marky Mark is our executive producer. He is awesome. All of you are awesome. Our guests, our listeners, our viewers. Have a wonderful and happy Mother's Day. Moms, you rock.